What's up, everyone? We thought we would kind of do something that's pretty cool. We are nearing the 1 year mark from when we released our first episode of Forging Brains podcast. So Riley and I were jumping on here, and we figured we would just kind of talk about and reminisce what this year has been like and what we've done and kind of what we thought about the podcast so far. So,
yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that it's been a year already. Like, it goes fast. Like, really quickly.
Super fast. I was just kind of like looking through some stats here, and there's 52 weeks in a year, and we have released 47 episodes. So that means we have only missed 5 weeks throughout the whole year that we didn't put out an episode weekly. Like, that's commitment.
Yeah, that's doing it. It's like, I know people. I know I'm not complaining at all. Like, I don't want it to come off and sound like, well, this is really hard. Like, but it is a shit ton of work to do. It's like a lot of background. Like, the part that everybody sees is just, and this is every podcast, of like, you just see this part where two people are talking or three people are talking, having a conversation
getting together.
But in reality, like, you got to make the connection with that person. For us, like, sound is a big deal. We don't want shitty sound quality, and so we're shipping mics all over the place. Like, we have like pretty expensive mics that we just been shipping from person to person. And so, like, in that, we're asking these guys that already live super busy lives to try to get this mic in the mail to the next person, and we're trying to connect with the other person, and then finding a day
in the schedule
in a time that we can all get together and talk it's hard. Tough. Everybody's got busy lives. That's the type of people we want to talk to, are the busy people. So it's
they're the hard people to connect with them. To figure out, like, in your daily life, you're like, oh, I'm so busy. How do these top guys make time to get to there? But we're figuring it out and trying to juggle between 3 people all the time. Like, it can be tough to figure it out, and sometimes there's sacrifices to be made, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, it's just late nights on everybody's part. That's usually when we do these, are in the evenings, and It's just like the guy's gonna be tired the next day. It. Like, I always think about that. Like, dude, that dude is lagging probably first horse the next day, because he's like, there's a couple of us, because usually we're somebody on the East Coast and they're like 3 hours ahead.
Oh yeah,
and I'll be going home at like 9:30 or so, leaving.
Yeah,
and so I know they're like, dude, they are whipped by that time.
I think it was Travis Smith, and it ended up going really long, and it was like midnight by the time we finished up with him.
Yeah. So it's like, it's not been just a commitment for us. It's been a commitment for the guys that are been on the podcast so far. It's like they have. It's
greatly appreciated.
Man, yeah. People always say they kind of like the ones where it's just me and Gavin, just gabbing. But it also is like, we would not be where we are without the guests. Without guests. And it's not even like, this is a selfish thing for me too. It's like, we get to like purposely carve out a chunk of time to talk to these people I like talking to. And it's an appropriate, like, when you're at the bar and you start asking about like their childhood and stuff like that, it's like, whoa, okay, too much, bro.
Yeah.
But it's
like, it's not what I want to talk about.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm going to go away now.
Not at this moment.
But on here, it's totally acceptable. So it's like, we get to know these people that we already like look up to.
Yeah.
Even more. It's a cool deal.
Get to know them on a little bit more of a personal basis, and maybe down the road, like if we do like episode 2 with somebody, and then it's like you just have like casual conversation where you're just telling stories and getting into having to revisit like how you got into it or whatever, and then just talk about contests you all been to, and
that's one of the cool things I think with our podcast, especially too, is we're not talking to people that have just done one thing. Like, these people are always doing things, and now like this 1 year, we've really just have hit like a little bit of background on a percentage of the people that we want to have on in general. So it's like, if we could have guests on again, and it's like, now like we just have you caught up a little bit.
But it's kind of hard to like cram 30 years into an hour and a half recording, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it's barely even scratching the surface and getting in there.
Well, I've caught myself even like noticing is like, me and Gavin are both super competitive guys. Like, obviously that's why we're in the situations we're in. But it's
Forging
like
brains.
Yeah, and we look at this podcast as a skill set. You know, like this is not like, oh, we're just, oh, anybody can have conversations. Like, no, this is a skill set. Like, I've studied how to have conversations better. I study other podcasts, how they put their things together. And it's sometimes I catch myself, we're like, whoa, we're an hour 15 in, and I haven't even gotten to the present time yet.
Yeah.
Like, well, I got to start moving this thing along. So it's something like, I've been trying to work on it, but I also don't want to, you know, we don't want to shut people down early. It's like, man, we want them to talk and have a good, easy conversation. And that's like, we've had great guests that just have, like, they got cool stories and they remember their stories, and they like, it's cool hearing how they come together.
I'm excited about our next guest. I'm not going to say his name yet, but
everybody knows him.
Everybody knows him, and I was just chatting with him on the phone. I was like, I can't believe how in depth he remembers every little detail about every contest he's been to. And I was like, dude, I hardly even remember like who we talked to last. Like, I remember like the whole thing, but I can't remember it down to like a fine tooth comb. And like, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to like have you on and talk about it. Like, it's gonna be good.
Another person that's like that a lot, he's on the next guest obviously, is Jim Poor. Jim can tell you about a competition that happened 30 years ago. Who was there? What happened? Where they went to dinner? Like,
I wish I had that good a memory,
dude. Same. That's it. When he's always was like, holy cow! Like, this is, I barely remember my first competition.
Yeah.
Barely.
I remember bits and pieces about it, but I don't remember it to where like, oh, I was at this point in the 30-minute marker and, you know, that kind of stuff.
No,
you know,
dude.
Something else I was kind of thinking of too when you talked about the skill set of the podcast. It's actually kind of cool. We get to use this as a tool to talk to these top level guys in our trade and kind of use it to our benefit to like ask questions on things that we may be struggling with or may need help with. And,
dude.
You know, so that's actually something that's pretty handy.
Well, we catered it to ourselves at that. When we first started this podcast, Gavin was just getting on the Team P&W team with us. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, we talked mostly to the guys that were on teams. And we're like, how do you practice? What do you do? Like, how do you guys position the go? Where's this? How are you trimming these feet?
And that's hard to do, like, if you're just trying to text somebody and ask those questions, you know, versus this, we're on the line with them. And
it benefits everybody who's listening, you know, hearing that stuff.
100%.
But it was definitely benefiting us at the time. It was like, man, I'm going to put this stuff to work. Like, this is good.
For the mental side, yes. But you actually have to get out there and do the work. So it's also like...
That's the hard part, man. That's the hard part.
Kind of the thing when you said, like, people might be lagging the next day because they might go till midnight. Sitting down on the computer having a conversation is a little different than, like, a 3-hour forging session where you're physically exhausting yourself too. So
no, that's true.
Might be a nice break for some of the guys, and
it is. That is very true. It's like it is, but it is a good like mental exercise because it's
makes you.
I think because like whenever anybody asks you how you did something, you're like, oh man, I don't really know how I did that. Like, I guess here, let me try to put it in words. And once you put it in words, you might realize something about your process that you were like, okay, that's how I do it.
I'm not really good at like articulating this thing, so it makes me think about how am I going to say this? And sometimes it's like, I don't necessarily recollect or whatever, like what I did in a way to put this in words. Like, it's almost like I could, do the process over like physically, but I don't know that I'd be able to express it sometimes and just tell people how I did that.
That's been big for me in the last like 2 years is trying to like put my process down in an actual process.
Like a clinic.
Everything.
Like
it's
that.
Like because like I think I've been doing clinics for a while now, but it's still like I don't think it's been this last little bit where I started like really thinking about how I put a clinic together and what it was going to portray. Because it's like a lot of what we do in horseshoeing is teaching the project, not the theory.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, you know, put it in different terms of like, I'm going to teach you how to make this biscuit, you know, just a flour biscuit. But it's like, in reality, it might help you out more if you learned this is what flour is for. This is what baking soda is for. This is what water is for. Like, and this is how you would expand on this, you know, so like, we all in horseshoeing we're really bad about like, oh well, I've learned this bar shoe, you know, like, but I haven't learned that one yet. It's like, well, it's just still the same. It's
the same.
It's got
process.
a toe bend, some shaping, and some welding. Like, it's really not that crazy. It's got a little like sprinkle of extras in here and there, but it's not like. So that's something that's like, I got a contest I'm judging in Canada coming up, and some of those shoes I added just a little extra thing to it that really doesn't matter. I don't think like. It's a benefit to the horse. Like, there's a bar shoe in there in the intermediate class. It's got a rolled toe and a scooped out toe, and it lets the horse bite into the ground a little bit better, you know. But it's easy to let those extras throw your head off.
Yeah.
When you're making the shoe, you think way too deep about it instead of just being like, it's a bar shoe with a rolled toe and a cutout chunk.
Yeah. Simplify it a little bit.
It's so it's like. That's something like I've been trying to do in my clinics is like how to teach a plan and how to see things as individual little chunks that you're just putting together and just know how to put those things together.
Yeah.
Is something that like.
These are like the basic steps essentially along the way.
Yeah. And so that's why I've been trying to teach just like individual steps and how they work. Like, okay, this is drawing material. This is making a section. This is a heel. Like,
when is that Canada contest again?
This month, the end of the month coming up, man. Like, I leave.
Are you nervous?
Yeah. Yeah, I am
Why?
nervous. Dude, it's just good people too. If like, I have to judge Nigel Fennell and Stephen Bean, like Dan Corker's like, dude, there's a chunk of.
They're competing?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it's like,
I'd be nervous.
It's like I put a tool and folder shoe in there because like, they asked for it. The guys that were putting the contest together were like, hey, that's a cool shoe. Could we have that one in the contest? And it's like, yeah, you could put that in there. And it's a tool and folder preventer.
Yep.
Well, I did that not knowing that like the dude of freaking tool and folder, Nigel, is gonna be competing there. It's like, man, this is gonna be.
Oh man, I bet it'd be. So imagine they put 2 crackers out there, right? Like they're fucking dialed, and it's like at this point, then you're gonna be like, what is a tiny little thing that's gonna set it apart? You know, because you think about
I've already
Steven
been thinking
and Nigel.
I've already been thinking that, and it's like, and I've already been thinking it's like. One thing I've learned, I haven't judged a lot of contests, but I think this will be like my 5th contest or something I've judged. And I just know I got to stick to my guns on my specimen. I want you to make my specimen.
Yeah.
I just, that's what I want. This is a specimen, and that's like, bam, I'm gonna judge you off my specimen like I didn't even make them.
Like leave the interpretation side out of it.
Yeah.
Or just black and white. This is that. And this
it has to be. That's the only way I think it's fair. Like, and not that it's fair, like. I guess that's just like the most. Here's the ground rules. This is what it is. You follow that rule. You make that perfectly. There it is.
So close to how they judged the World Championship deal, I guess.
Yeah, and that's. It seems like most of the it doesn't seem like most of the big contests. That's how they're judged. They aren't judged of like, oh, well, this one's a little different. You know, it's like that's wishy-washy judging.
Yeah,
that's stuff you couldn't foresee.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And like. Good competitors can pick up on things I think that the judge isn't even picking up on. You know what I mean? They're like, I can look at your work and see these things, and that's what I'm going to give you because I know that's what's going to catch your eye.
And that's going to be better.
But
and that's what's going to help you or hurt you. I see.
On a specimen, it's like, man, just make them the specimen. Like that's what you got to do in all shoe making in a contest. I think is just make what they have on the table. This commercial and podcast is brought to you by the World Championship Blacksmith. We're so excited to have the Trinket family support what we're doing here. It is a huge part of the topics that we have on this podcast, and it's where we've gained a lot of community at. And exactly what they are. They are a community that supports education through competition. So if you were looking for a support system behind you on your journey of becoming a better farrier, go join up and go to an event. You will never regret it. And they've been nice enough to offer us a 10% off on their online store or call-in orders for everything besides competitions and membership. So go hit them up, get some merch, and let some people know what you support. Thank you, guys.
Switch a little gears here. I guess we could say congratulations to Matt Randles on winning the World Championship.
Dude.
And it looked like it was some pretty spicy competition up there.
I don't watch sports at all.
Yeah, me
either. I was watching that stuff like it was the freaking Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
I mean, it's the Olympics of our sport, right?
It is the Olympics of our world. Like, a huge thank you to the World Championships of Blacksmith, Craig and them, like Craig, Christine, Bodie, Levi, all of them, their workers. Like, how big is that? Dude, they brought the World Championships back.
Yeah.
That was not easy. That wasn't just, it's not like this thing just fell on their lap and all they had to do was show up.
Especially when they tried to do it, I think it was 2021 or whatever, and then COVID hits. And so they were already on the mission to like bring it back, and then everything gets shut down. It's gone to shit.
Yep.
But they brought it back, and it's pretty sick.
Dude, and it was huge. It looked so cool. Like everything from like the opening ribbon, the cutting the ribbon ceremony.
Yeah.
With all these like horses,
fancy.
dude. It was cool. Like,
it takes it up from just like setting up and doing a contest in like a backyard or at a venue or whatever. Like you are there, and it makes it feel like this is the cream of the crop.
Oh, I definitely had jealousy rolling that I wasn't there.
I really want to go next year. I don't know if I necessarily need to compete, but I want to go so we can sit down with guys and get some episodes.
Yeah, it'd be cool, and just be there to record it, take it all in, and stuff like that. I would love to compete there. I don't know, the whole like competing just to compete thing has lost me a little bit. Like I used to just do it. I'd be like, oh, I haven't really practiced, but I want to go and compete, so I just go and not do very good, and I'd be like, yeah, I didn't practice. But now I'm like, that's embarrassing to me. I don't want to do it. If I go, I want to be practiced up. I want to be.
And it's kind of like
and I know I can't. I don't want to say like I know I can't win it, because if I go, I want to have that in my head that I could possibly win it. It's like, but I also know it's like that's not where my goal is right now in life, and that needs to be your whole goal in life.
Yeah, especially if you're going there, trying to do that.
It needs to be everything.
Yeah,
everything, because it's. And man, like they talk about consistency.
Every class you would have to be.
He was.
Yeah.
Like I had to look back. It was like off my memory. You top 3 each class.
I think so. Yeah, I think like his lowest was like a 5th or something.
That is impressive in that crowd.
I will say, since we are American, I was really rooting for Money. He was only a few points behind every time. I was like, come on, man, come on.
Dude, and Americans still did pull, like, dude, Dylan did good.
Hell yeah.
Dylan's a young dude in this trade, and he's a reserve world champion.
It's badass.
That's pretty freaking cool. Pretty freaking cool. And it keeps, you like, I don't think a lot of people understand the mental side of that thing, of staying in it. Yeah. That was a long competition.
Especially, when you're down a few points and you're like, I need to pick it up and gain more points on whoever's up in front and keep pushing forward versus letting it get to you and be like, well, I'm out of this, so whatever.
I guarantee there was some laxing off on the bottom end of the step where you're like, man, I'm so far behind. Like, you're still going there trying to make the nicest thing you can, but of
course,
you can't tell me that it's not hitting you a little mentally. But like when you're in the upper chunk still, it's like you still got a chance. Still got a chance to just come in here and do something. Like
knock it out.
Pushing harder each day, trying not to blow yourself up or forget something. It's like
I think that point scoring, because they were going like 5 point increments towards like the top, like last few days, and that's really where I think it would like separate a couple guys. If first and second really matter.
Yeah. Dude, how nerve-wracking, like, all of a sudden you're in the top 10, and by the end of the day you might not get to shoe a horse.
Yeah.
Because half of you are getting cut.
Yeah. It's a trip.
Dude, I mean, trip even is like, how ecstatic would you be just being in the top 10? Huge. That is huge, dude. Huge. It's like...
Against the best in the world. Dude,
65 competitors, and you're in the top 10.
It'd be sick.
Of the world. Of the world, not just of WCB in general draws huge names, and if you're placing in the top 5, top 10 of the WCB, you got something to be proud of.
Mm-hmm.
But this was something so big that people practice so long for. Like,
it means a lot, and there's a lot up for grabs,
dude. And like we always think of the competitors, but I think like. I would have been so nervous being spud in Austin.
I was kind of thinking about that, like, how, I mean, it'd be so easy to be favorite or like play favorites or whatever, in a situation like that. But like Austin said, like, you just have to do it. Like, you have to just fit the guidelines. The shoes are there. He's like, I'm just leaving it black and white. So there is that aspect too. Like, that's a tough job, and all the jobs probably had to been like super great. So it's like almost like the nitpicky thing, like what makes this better than that.
Guaranteed nitpicking.
Like there's so much on the line. So it's like, and everybody there competing knows what's good and what's not good. What separates it from the bottom and the top. So it's also like, if they, you can't influence the judge to be like, oh, come on, man, like this is way better. Like, you can't do that. It's said in the rules, like, if you try to influence the judge, you will be disqualified. So it's also that aspect, and you can't do that. And that would just be tough to be a judge for. There's a lot on the line.
The shoe, like the shoes, the forging is like not forge making. The shoes, the shoemaking, you have a specimen to go off of, right? So for them, like the judging part of that, a little easier, I would imagine, still hard, and you get a little bit more time to do it. Judging the shoe wing, hard.
Yeah, because you might get a minute or two.
Everybody's got different feet.
Yeah.
You only get so long to look at the horse. You don't want to hold this guy back.
Yeah.
It's not like the horses are going to sit there all day and everything's marked down to who's is who's and everything, and you get it like all day to judge it.
No.
You get
they're in and they're
barely
out.
in time to judge it, and you just have to give them a score right then. And it's like, that to me, it would be so hard. Yeah. Especially on that level, like you're saying, all the work is so good. It's not like you're like, oh yeah, this is easy. This guy's an 8, and this guy's like a 9-8. Like this is how we're gonna split her up. Like, it's like, okay, the worst score here is a 9.
I think we got to make it a mission.
Competitors, like.
I think we got to make it a mission to go next year, so that way we can just see it instead of like us talking right now, wondering like, oh, this is probably what it was like. Where we could go there and be like, oh, that's how it was done. And
we'll have to get Austin back on and talk about the judging of it. That'll be interesting too. I'd like to hear his. I'm sure he had a pretty good idea before, but no, I want to go see it for my own eyes.
Absolutely.
See what it is. Like, I know it's gonna be freaking amazing, man. It was so cool to see all those people there. When the moment that was the coolest, I thought, like, is you see all these old Calgary pictures where everybody's lined up on the field and they get a picture taken of them,
Mm-hmm.
Dude, and I saw that picture of this year, I was like, I hate that I'm not there. Like, I want to be in this picture. Like, you already, like there's a saying of, like, there's only so many opening days, like, hunting-wise. Like, there was only one bring back a year, and I missed it. Yeah. Like, there was only the one, man.
The first one back.
Yeah.
First one back. It's always hard, like, sitting back at home and, like, you're seeing it going on. You're like, man, I could be there. I should have put myself there. I should have been there. And I'm watching it through my phone.
Yep. Feel like I'm driving a shoe horses and through this. It's like, but could have made it happen. Just didn't make it happen. But man, props to everybody that went and did. So freaking good. And if you went, you were already so high. And like, everybody always says this, and I'm not really the guy to say it. Like, well, if you go, you beat everybody that didn't go. It's like, there's some good guys sitting at home. But it's like, if you went to the Spruce Meadows, man, what a leg up. Like,
oh yeah,
you went and did something. Those classes were not easy.
No, I was actually kind of thinking about it when we were talking to Stan, and I was like, oh, what shoes do you want from the pool? And I think he said the Dutch, like, sarcastically. I think he said, like, the Dutch shoe and the Italian shoe. Yeah. And those were the shoes I got picked.
Yeah, exactly. The other one was the French Hind. He didn't want that French Hind.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it didn't he didn't have to make that one at least. But he did say that he was pretty excited for the speed forging. And he won it. He won the speed forging, so it was like, and I thought it was funny. There was something like he had. I would like to hear his trick that he had, because he's like, well, I'm doing it in a way, but it's a competition. I don't want to say I'm doing it. Yeah, but it's like, obviously your trick was pretty handy because you went in there and won it.
Fuck yeah,
that was a cool deal.
was something I was thinking about was it was cool to see a lot of our guests that we've had on the podcast. They were there and they were doing well. Like that was something that was super cool. It's like, God damn, we just talked to a lot of these guys and they're all up in there, you know.
That's one of my favorite things about the competition world in general is like most of the guys on the list I know personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, so it's not even like that was the thing going into it, is like I had people that I was thinking like me and Gavin talked about when it was like, who do you think's gonna win? You know, who's gonna be in the top 5? And like we definitely have our ideas, but it's like I'm gonna be happy for whoever wins this thing because I know everybody and I know all these guys work super freaking hard. So it's like, so whoever pops out on top, like, man, that's awesome. Like
they did it.
It wasn't like there wasn't anybody on the list who was like, I hope he doesn't win. I hope he does bad. Like, so it's pretty cool.
So I guess the one sport that I do watch actually is still it's motocross and supercross, and something that I play throughout the years. They have a fantasy league for it.
Okay, like fantasy football, but for
yeah, it's kind of like it, but it's for like the motocross races and supercross races. And as before the contest got started, and when we were having that conversation, like who do you think could win or whatever, and I was kind of thinking in my head, I was like, imagine if we had like a fantasy game for the contests, you know, like either going to like regular WCBs or like the championship, the Spruce Meadows.
Dude, start a Calcutta on the WCB guys.
I think that would be kind of fun and kind of cool to play.
It would, but man, it's like it's the same in the rodeo world. It's like if the guys watch the Calcutta and they see how much they were sold, you know, it's like it has to put a bubble on, you know, it does. So you can see it put a freaking monkey on their shoulder. Where it's like those supercross guys have no idea you're betting on them.
Some do, some don't. Yeah.
If we started a fantasy league for like WCB on their page, people are like, "What the fuck? No one voted for me." It's like, I'd feel
so bad. Be a little bit of let down.
Yeah, I'd be like, "That's a freaking bummer."
Yeah, I guess. Well, the way it works is you don't necessarily know until there's a time deadline, so you can't change your picks at one point. So if you're going up until the deadline, like basically which is the first round that goes off. So you don't necessarily know anything until it has actually started. So I guess in the later rounds you would kind of know, like it would like, oh, I got this many pick percents, but it also doesn't show like who picked who. So that might work out in a guy's favor.
Yeah, that'd be a little better.
Not knowing like your friends,
it's a
like
pretty personal little circle.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck? My friend didn't even pick me?
Exactly.
You got no faith?
All of a sudden you're back in elementary school getting picked for the basketball
dodgeball
teams. Yeah, the dodgeball. Like, fuck, there's only 3 of us left. Like,
that's
I'm definitely hitting him in the face.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, coming for him.
Oh, dude. I was like, thankfully I've always been like fairly athletic, so you get picked, but it's like, I also, if someone didn't pick me like in the first 2 or 3 picks, like, I'm coming for you. Coming for you.
But it's also like, so say you get 0 picks, right? Or nobody picks you. Like the competitive side comes out and you're like, I'm going to prove all these fuckers wrong and I'm going to try even harder.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So it might work out in somebody's favor, right?
Dude, it might.
And just dominate.
Yeah, give him a little bit of
revenge.
You know who Cameron Haynes is?
Mm-hmm.
He's like a bow hunter and stuff like that. But he has this shirt that says like, "My haters fuel me."
Yeah.
So he does.
Fueled by haters' tears or whatever. Or something.
Yeah, somebody fucking like he does.
Saying.
Just like he loves proving people wrong. Just like, you think I'm this? I'm gonna grind through it. Like I'm gonna go ahead and show you. I think that's like one of the most enjoyable things in the world is sucking at something a little bit. It's like, dude, I like it. I like sucking at something new. Like it's or feeling that like stress and like anxiety, like this could all go so bad so quickly. Like it's just
something I've been playing a couple rounds of golf this last month, and
I just want to take a second to tell you about Farrier Box. First of all, we owe Farrier Box a huge thank you for being one of the first ones to jump on and support what we're doing here with the podcast. If you haven't heard about Farrier Box, it's a bi-monthly box that comes to your door, and it's filled with goods, kind of like the Chewy box to your dogs. But this one's not filled with crap. She gets advice from the top guys of the industry and puts together a box with a theme. They aren't just a bunch of random items. They always have something where like
some pieces of bar stock to practice for an upcoming contest with the punch or the fuller that you can use and fits that shoe. It's a great deal. She also throws in items that you wouldn't think of, like good soaps, things to take care of yourself, make your truck smell good. Get on Farrier Box and use code BRAINS at checkout, and you're going to get 25% off your first box.
When we're talking to Hooter, you're like, I don't know what you guys are even talking about, you know? And, dude, golf is like one of those games, like highs and lows. Like, you'll hit like a super great shot and you come up, and then you hit a shitter, and you're like, motherfucker, I hate this game.
And is it something like, you're like, is it, you think that it's like you just haven't been doing it long enough that you're like, what the fuck, why was that one shot so good? And why was this shot so shitty? Like,
yeah, that's part of it. Like, I mean, I don't play super regular, so it's not like our careers are like with shoeing horses and stuff. Like, we do that on a regular basis. So there's like, you can always have constant, you can have constant room for improvement because you're working on it every day. Whereas like golf for me, it's like a hobby. Like if I go play today or go play tomorrow, I'll be like, hell yeah, I'm out there playing. But I probably might not play for another couple weeks or. In this case, like the last time I played was like 2 years ago, so it's like,
oh shit,
you know. So I don't know.
That's a while.
Yeah,
that's fun. That's been the dog hunting for me. Is like anything could happen when you let the dog go. Like,
oh yeah,
dude, he could leave really far away, and like
it's always something that's like
you lose your dog.
Yeah, that's something that's like tripped me out about like like hunting or whatever and using dogs. It's like, what if your dog just decides to like lose it and he's just gone? Like, you're putting a lot of, like, faith and trust in him.
Every time every time I drop him off, like, I pet the shit out of him on the back of the box before I put him on the road. Because it might be a couple days before I see you again.
Please come back to me.
The dog I have, Sile's really good about coming back.
Is he?
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's times, like, the other day, he's 900 yards away from the road in the woods, just trailing, you know, and heading away.
Shit.
Like, and there's times they go farther than that. Like, and it's like I'm new. That's where like I'm new enough at it that it's like constant anxiety of like what's happening out there. I mean, he's chasing dangerous game. Yeah, that's what he's after, predators, and so it's like I'm still got the anxiety of it of like what's happening. You can't see what's happening. It's the unknown, like complete unknown. You're trusting the dog that he's on something that he's supposed to be on, and that he's gonna keep doing the job, and that he's gonna. And also, you're trusting these electronics.
Yeah.
Like, dude, cell
Hopefully
phones and shit like
doesn't
that.
Die.
Dude, just drop them. Just drop them. Like, all of a sudden you got a question mark where your dog was at one time.
Yeah.
And you're like, and they only go so far. Like, I just bought this new antenna that's hopefully gets me to like 9 miles of seeing
Holy
them.
Shit. Yeah,
because the one I have right now is only about 1.5 miles. And then you'll drop, you don't have them anymore.
Oh, damn.
But it's
That's
funny, like, I go with this older guy, like my mentor in it, and he's been doing this forever, and so it's just there's no anxiety really from him.
Yeah,
like, dude, his dog was 1.5 miles away from us, or a little. It was like 1.9 miles, and we lost contact with him.
Wow.
And it was really, we were snowed out, and he's just like, well, I'll go back to the house, grab the side by side, and come back up here and try to get him. And I was just like. Back to the house, dude. We're like an hour away from the house. He's like, he's gonna be
really.
He's like, he's gonna be up here for 2 hours by himself, and he's like, yeah, he'll come back. He's like, everybody just take a piss over here, and he'll probably be right there.
Oh,
and dude, so we left, and we all leave, dude. Elvis is just still tracking, and we come back. Like, I get back to service, and I waited a couple hours, and I'm sending him a message like, hey, did you ever find the dog? He's like, yeah, he's laying down by the piss spot.
No shit.
He's right there. It's like.
He has trust.
Yeah, and most these dogs are like pretty genetically bred to do this. You know, like it's like a pretty tight breeding, and like especially around here is like these are West Coast cat dogs. They are made to run this terrain and chase cats. Like they want to do that coming out of the womb. They are that's what they want. And so a lot of them backtrack themselves. They lose the track and don't have it. They'll just turn around and they smell so good they just smell themselves back all the way to the road.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
It's the most wild thing ever to watch that thing. Like, dude,
there's no way in hell I could let Meg do that. You know what I mean? There's no way in hell Meg is gonna be.
She ain't backtracking shit, dude.
No, she's gonna get to where she's at. I'm lost, and then that's it.
Lay down and die.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. She's gonna be cat meat. You know.
Oh, that's been my favorite. Like I like sucking at something, so it's been fun. Of like you just never know what's gonna happen, and it's
try.
like forging's the same way. That's why I like competitions. Like you practice so much, and anything can happen on that day.
And that's kind of the same as like when you talked about your mentor with the dogs. Like he has put in so much work with his dogs and training, so he just trusts the process.
Yeah,
whereas
if it
like it
works
can
out,
translate
they
for
come
us
back.
going to horseshoeing competitions. Like you practice so much through the years, like you get to a point where you just trust the process. Like I've put
Dude.
this work in, and it's gonna help me. And
Yep. And that's what is kind of cool is like there were some young guys that were doing good. Like Dylan did pretty good, but it's like Matt Randles has been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah.
Like he's a seasoned competitor.
Yeah.
That's I hope we can try to get him on and pick his brain on and how he went about it, because I feel like it was very, very detailed plan of like
We'll have to get a mic over to the UK and then start shipping it around.
get that ring going over there.
So I know we have quite a bit of listeners over there in the UK, so
Yep.
we'll probably need some help from some of the listeners too. Like if you guys are in the UK or even the US and you want to hear some guys that are over there that we may not necessarily know personally or whatever, and just let us know.
Yeah, but there's a chunk of it. It'd be cool to hear from Matt, because like, and how I thought it was so cool of like his dad made that badass trophy,
Oh, dude, that thing was sick.
not even knowing that his kid was gonna win it.
So it's coming back.
How cool is that? Like I thought, I was like, dude, that is so freaking cool
That was badass.
that his dad put all these hours into this thing, and it goes
gets
to
to
his
keep
kid.
Yeah.
Like, and he
Essentially
did,
gets
and
to
that's
keep
not what he made
yeah.
it for. He made it just
No.
for whoever's gonna win it. And it's like, but his kid won it. And his
Could have
kid
went all
gets
the
to-
way across the world.
And I'm pretty sure he was. I think it's Mike Randles. Yeah, Mike. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Mike was there with him.
Oh,
So
was he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got to watch the competition. And so, man, what a moment for a dad of like a second generation farrier son. All right, they might be more than that, but it's like your son that's followed in your footsteps, and you got to watch him just go out there and just put it down. Like,
So I don't really
some just
know
good
Matt.
work.
I think I've only met him once, and it was in Vegas, like 2016 or something. It was quite a long time ago. I wonder if he was there when Calgary was going on, however long ago it was, like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
You
it'd
know?
be interesting to know.
Guess
I'm
we'll
not
have
sure.
to try to get him on the line.
Yeah, I met him, I think, at the same time as that. And then I met his dad at Stoneleigh when we went over. It was...
Oh, yeah.
They have, like, that Stoneleigh place is pretty cool, right? Because it's, like, outside. They have a couple power hammers and stuff, and, like, people putting on demos
Oh, it's the
during
Stoneleigh
it.
deal?
Yeah, and, like, Mike was there making a Damascus dagger.
Oh, shit.
He was outside just running the power hammer and stuff, and, like, it was kind of cool. There really wasn't anybody, like... When I came by, he was kind of like a random moment, and there was just like nobody watching. It's like there's this awesome thing happening right here. Like,
Yeah.
This guy's out here just making magic, and you guys are
Actually,
over there at the glue-on shoe booth.
I remember that now, and I was kind of thinking it's pretty cool how, like, over there in the UK, how, like, they say Stoneleigh, they have, like, a facility there for the contest to happen every year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it has all the forges, anvils, ties, like, we don't really have something like that here in the U.S., and
Yet.
from what I gathered, Craig said he's building himself a headquarters there at his place, and it'll probably be something similar to kind of like what they got going on over there.
Dude, I'd be so excited.
Yeah.
So excited if we have a home.
Yeah.
Right now, we're kind of gypsies. Like, I feel, you know what I mean? Like, when I explain it to people, I'm like, so we're kind of like the carnival. Like, there's this big semi that everybody follows around.
Yep.
We-
Big old tent that just pops
like,
up.
we are the most random bunch of rednecks that, like, know random big cities and the good restaurants in them. And, like, like, we've, like, traveled around enough that we have
And
this.
Craig's
like,
the ringleader.
dude, yeah. It is kind of cool, though, because, like, without the WCB, I wouldn't have traveled to any of these places.
No,
Any of these.
no, it sent us across the world.
Dude, all over the place. When someone brings up a random state. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been there.
Oh, that's where so and so lives.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
I know a horseshoer
right
there.
here. Like, yeah, have you been to
Got a
this?
buddy there.
Have you been to this restaurant? Really good. It's like, it's magic. Like people look at you a little bit differently. They're like, there's this country ass dude. They're just like,
he's a rambling man.
Been traveling. Just been traveling. It's pretty cool. No, it's like, it's crazy to think where horseshoeing can take you if you just let it a little bit. Like, you just gotta go. You can do one of these things.
That's something that just blows my mind. When you meet somebody, like, say in your area that has never been to a horseshoeing competition or knows that these things go on, where, you know, where we are, like, yes, we have traveled quite a bit for contests, where these people are in this area and this is all they know. It's just this little, I don't know, county, I guess, and like that is their world, when there's so much more. It just blows my mind when you meet somebody that knows nothing about what actually is way out there in the big wide world.
And I bet it's for you too, and a lot of other guys that have traveled. It changes you, not just how you like shoe and stuff like that. It's your life. Yeah. You're like, whoa, this is how I was talking to this guy, and this is how they run their day. Like, this is what he does every day. This is where they go. Like, this is how they shop. This is how they like have their house. This is how he has their shop. Like, so you learn so much about just day to day life that you're like, you know, and you learn what else, like you're saying, what else is out there, to the point where you're like, I don't like where I currently live. I just thought it was the normal. I thought everybody was like this and everywhere. And then you get somewhere else and you're like, whoa, there's different things. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna move to one of those places that have the different things. Oh yeah, because that's what I want. Like, yeah, it was a huge wake up for me. I grew up in such a ghetto freaking area of like, it was like country kids and everything else, but like I grew up thinking everybody fought. It's like, if you had a difference, fighting, yeah, like that was just like, I thought that was so normal growing up. That it's like, if you have a difference, and you never talk shit, you don't do any of that, you go up and you fight, and it's over with.
Imagine if things were like that still today, like everywhere, and like,
oh, that's the thing. It always can be. People need to remember that.
Nowadays, everybody's just keyboard warriors, and everybody's big bad tough guy. But when it comes down to it, no says
that just like didn't exist. Like, there was like, I hate to say, like, there was a pecking order when you're in, like, because everybody here, you're like, well, you might not want to speak up because that dude can beat the shit out of you. Yeah, and it's gonna hurt. Like, so you just stay quiet. You mind your P's and Q's.
There was a time, I don't know, probably like 10 years ago or whatever, where I was young, immature, and I would pipe off and say some things, and I look back at that and I'm like, man, I was a dummy. Like, I'm a little guy, I'm not a fighter. Yeah. Like, I could have just been killed many a times. Like,
oh dude, I learned that lesson when I think I was 11 or 12. This little kid, we were at like this dance thing, you know, and like this little kid that I kind of knew through some other people was there getting picked on by some other kids. And like, he is like, hey, aren't you going to stand up for me? I'm like, no. And I kind of made fun of him back.
Oh shit.
Dude, 2 days later, we were walking at this like park deal, and he walked up with this huge older friend. And that guy's like, straight up at, he's like,
take care of him.
He's like, did you not stand up for him and then make fun of him? And I was like, well, you know, and like, as I was making an excuse out of my mouth, boom, just on my back. Just like right then I was like,
today.
I was like, you know, you might want to either stand up for people or just excuse yourself. Just like, hey, this is none of my business. I'm going to kind of pipe off. I'm going to go back here, man. I'm definitely not going to add on top of you. Or
there's a big lesson in that.
Stand up for people.
Definitely a big lesson in that.
No, yeah. But that all said, I don't necessarily want my child to grow up in that same environment. Like, true. I would rather grow up in a place where people aren't, there isn't so much violence, and that's how people handle things. Like, you can talk things out. It's okay.
Like, it's a matter of respect, and I think respect just kind of gets thrown out the window these days. Like, I think there's so much lack of.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the world itself. Like, it's kind of sad.
Because really. it is like, you can stay behind your little wall so much, you know what I mean, and just on the internet and act like you just know everything. It's easy. We can take pictures from whatever angles we want, you know. Yeah, people see things, but it's like, then in reality, it's just like a horseshoeing contest. You know, there's a difference between making shoes on the internet and having a good looking shoe on the internet, and then going to a competition and have a good looking shoe.
As Money said, you got to step into the ring.
You have to, man. If you're going to go blabbing your mouth on some stuff, you have to do it. And it's like, this is something I've been thinking of for the last like week. I get a lot of messages, and so like if you think this is you, like trust me, there's not just one of you. There is 10, 15 of you that send me messages of these shoes that you're like, well, how does this one look? How does this one look? How does this one look? And it's like, and I'll help. I'm happy to help, and I'm happy to give little key things. You know, like, well, work on this a little bit, or you know, I see this consistently in your shoes. Try to work on that. Where we see guys, and I love using Troy as an example, but we see guys like Troy. It's like, man, he did this in 3 years.
It's unbelievable.
It is, but it's not. Because what you need to understand about Troy is that he made more shoes in those 3 years than a lot of people have made in 15.
Yeah.
That's why Troy is so good. Troy's not like I don't want to throw out like he is smart, he is athletic, but he also runs and takes that seriously. He works out for his cardio so he can run through a class like that and make us that many shoes. He is practiced. His endurance is there to stay cognitive through the whole entire shoe.
Dedicated.
That is huge. And so it's like you can, to make a good shoe, what it would be a French Hind Roadster bar shoe, you have to make thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands.
It's not going to happen after just one.
It was something that I had to come around. It was like, man, I would make one in a day. And you're like, oh, okay, here. And it's like, no, you got to make fucking 4 of those things. And more or less, like, if you made a mistake, you have to make another one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like, well, I'll do it tomorrow. Cut another damn piece. Do it again.
What John basically said last week. You know, he's like, you got to make a lot of shoes, but then you got to start thinking with your brain and practicing with your brain. And yeah, you have to make a lot, but you don't have to go full retard and make 1,000, or you don't have to go like balls to the wall and just until your elbow hurts so much. But you got to do it
you got to
wisely.
practice smart. You got to practice smart, but it's like there is no shortcut.
No.
That's my favorite part of horseshoeing is there's zero shortcut and no one can do it for you.
You can't buy your way into the top.
You can't even be born into it, man.
No.
It's like Bodie is good because he's Bodie and he's good.
He's doing the work.
Yeah, it's not like it's cool. His dad's Craig, and he had a good opportunity to get help, but it's like he's got the same opportunities all the rest of us got.
Yeah.
All the rest of us can call those same people that he's got help from, and they would give us help too. And it's like, but he has put in the fucking time to be good.
Yeah.
To make all those shoes. Like, I don't know. I know that's like a little bit of a rant on it, but it's like, man, don't, and it's not even a rant, but like, understand there's a process.
Mm-hmm.
Understand you're not magically one day gonna make a sweet shoe.
You might. Something might click in the brain.
maybe one, but it's like to understand what's fully happening. Like John saying, is like if you keep on getting folds in front of your caulking, man, you gotta go back to the drawing board and you gotta figure out why. And like that's where like cutting it back to like that's one of the main reasons I want to do a clinics the way I want to do them is like teaching procedures is so you understand what happened there. You're not just like, well, this keeps happening, so I just keep doing it. You know, maybe one of these times it's not going to happen. Like, it's like...
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, with your caulkins.
Oh,
You're like, I don't know why he's always come out looking exactly the same, dude.
And hopefully it gets better. I'm bad about, like, breaking that down.
But it's funny, but you'll pick up on things that are just, like, right there, like, that I'm, like, over-theorizing. You know, I'm like, well, I think this and this. You're like, no, I think it's just like this, man. I don't know. I think this is pretty simple.
I'm not real big on, like, getting so in-depth with things, too. You know, like you like to, like, figure everything out down to the fine detail.
I have to know the why. Like, why it's happening.
I'm not necessarily, I don't know, just in one ear, out the other sometimes with that, but, yeah.
No, and that's, like, but you've learned that about yourself through practice.
Yeah.
To like understand it. You know, where I think a lot of these guys don't even understand their own brain yet or where they're at, you know? And I think like, man, that's half of it. And the only way I think to get there is just practicing. It's like
put the effort out.
Get help from it. Yeah, and it's like you're putting out the effort. And so it's like it's always a hard thing when you are putting out some effort and someone comes along and is like, "Oh, you just need more effort."
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, fuck, I'm already doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, Dude, that hit me in my hunting life, where I thought I was hunting hard and stuff, and guys like, "Oh no, you just gotta work harder."
And it's like, fuck, I am working hard.
Work harder. It's like, oh damn,
I'm
it's
already
like,
busting my ass.
and you start working a little harder, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that does work out.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, maybe you said you got a bunch of these guys. I send you a picture of the shoes. Send them back over to the Forging Brains, and we'll do a pregame funk episode again.
yeah, we should do this more of that. We haven't done that in a while. Where like, you want to send some shoes, things you're working on, stuff like that. And we'll kind of
If we get a lot of them, if we get a good group, then we'll put together and do an episode.
that, and like try to maybe even think of questions like, this happens to me in my practice. Why? Not one particular shoe. Of like, this goes on a lot when I'm punching nail holes.
Yeah.
Why do I have that problem? You know,
Yeah.
like sometimes it can be simple little things, man. It's like, I used to punch nail holes really fine, and it wasn't until somebody like, you try punching them across your body. I'm like, well, no.
Pulled it in.
And as soon as I did it, I was like, whoa, that was went coarser. Okay. Like, I'm not going to fight. Like, and that's one thing, dude, is like, don't fight something in your practice just because you think it's not correct. Because I wasn't punching across body
things.
just because one dude says, like, people who punch across body can never be good. You know, it's like, well, I'll just won't do it.
Yeah.
I will always punch over here. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't matter what the fuck you look like or how you got there. If the shoe gets turned in and it has
the
good
end
nail holes
product.
down the middle,
Yeah.
that's the one that's going to do well.
Yeah. The process does. Well, yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to look pretty the way you're doing it or flashy or whatever, but what ends up in the end is what counts.
I think, dude, a lot of people get screwed up with that. They watch a dude like Money or something like that, and they watch how he swings, and they're like, I want to swing like Money.
Yeah,
And
it's pretty awesome.
You're like, yeah, Money's got a badass swing, and he's coming from God's back porch, but it's like, he also has this little thing called control.
Dude, yeah, it's so precise. Like,
And it's like, you might want to work on the control part before you work on coming from God's back porch part.
something that I admire, actually, like, when watching him is he still will come all the way back and just barely tap it, you know, versus, like, just coming at it and whipping on it. Like, he can still go all the way back and then just lightly tap it, you know, with finesse, and like that's something
he reminds me of like a power hammer, where he's still coming with that full swing, but it's just a kiss, you know, just a little love tap. But he is a dude. It's like, people watch his arm. You might want to watch the rest of his form.
Yeah, the body.
Dude's dropping with his hammer. He's bent in the hips. He's not just like crunched over. It's like he's got a lot of good things going. Obviously, he's handy as hell. But it's like, don't watch somebody and think, well, I'm just gonna get there by swinging like he does.
No.
Like, man, that takes a lot of slow play work to get there. Of like
Tom Peterson's kind of the same way. Watching him, like, he can come all the way back, and then just he's got so much precision there as well.
Dude,
it's
yeah.
cool.
And you gotta take into consideration body, like, shapes and how you're built. Like, if you're a short, squatty guy or something, it's like, if you're a Todd Walker, you might not be swinging like Bodie. Like,
no.
You have two way different bodies, so it's like, how it's gonna go. You can still deliver the same amount of power, but it's just gonna have to come about a different direction, a different way.
And Stan's probably not gonna be whipping it way back there either. Like, he's just muscle.
Dude is muscle. Is muscle.
It's badass.
So it's kind of crazy too to think of like how much in just a year, like, just changes too. It's like, when we first started this, we were going to competitions quite a bit and doing the team.
Yep.
And right now is just like, lately it's just been we haven't had a competition really on the board to go to. Yeah. Not for us. And we haven't been doing the team deal. We kind of took a break everybody took a break from the team deal. I think we did that for 2 years. I did.
You guys did, yeah.
Yep. And so we were kind of just ready for a break to do something else. And I'm pretty ready to go to some individual competitions.
Yeah, and you have to prepare yourself, you know, when you have to commit, right? It's commitment. And
that's where the team deal's hard, is you got to travel to each other a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can practice every night in your shop by yourself, but sooner or later you guys got to start putting them together.
Yeah,
and having your partners look at your work.
Because you have to jive. jive together.
Yep. So that's pretty hard, but we had that Oregon contest with Ben Yeager. So that was a pretty fun one. Yeah, it was just your normal local contest.
Well, the Foz one's coming up here in the next week or two too.
Yeah,
as well.
That's going to be a cool one. You guys got Craig.
Yeah, I haven't built a single shoe for it.
Awesome. You got that going for you.
No,
I already saw Troy practicing, so that's good.
Oh, of course. Actually, to be honest, my Coke Forge is still in the back of my truck.
Is it really from Oregon?
Mm-hmm. I haven't even unloaded it yet.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah. I've really been slacking on that department.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, dude. It's like, especially for you right now, of like your shop setup's not at your house.
It's not ideal, so...
No, so it's hard to, like, it's one more step that you got to drive down the road.
Drive a mile out there to go do it. It is, yeah. It is one of those things, so... There will come a time where I'll saddle back up and put the effort forward.
Are you signed up for Fort Worth?
I want to take a moment to tell you guys about Wellshod. And not just that they carry every item you can think of from every brand, including from the little guys. You can get some Adam Farr punches, some Ben Sneer hammers. They pretty much got it all in the hard-to-beat $10 shipping. But I also want to take a moment to talk about John himself. You see the Wellshod name at pretty much every single contest that you go to. And not only that, you see John himself there supporting what we do and investing his time. Heck, John's even jumped in the competition in his ring himself at some of the WCB contests. That speaks huge to me. And it also speaks huge that John wanted to support what we're doing with the podcast. They've agreed that if you guys use brains at checkout, they're going to put a little mystery item in the box for you. So go ahead and support them and what they're doing, and it helps support us. Because in all, we're all just one community.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Debating. I'm debating.
Are you? Why?
Yeah.
You don't debate it. Just go. Just go.
I know. They're probably... We'll see.
I'm on the wait list.
Yeah.
It's a new thing. New world we're living in where I'm like... On a wait list. On a wait list, man. It's awesome, but it's like... I'm practicing, just hoping I'm going to go.
If you're on a wait list, you got to practice.
Yeah, I'm going to go and buy my plane ticket and everything. I figured nothing else. I could go and do some podcasts with people. Well, I'll go either way. I'm just going to get a hotel room and stuff and just go,
all right.
I guess. I don't know. I say that. I can always go and strike for people.
Yeah.
So I'll always get to work some.
I'll think about that as well. Take that in consideration.
I thought you were already signed up, so I figured like, oh, well, if nothing else, me and Gavin can just get a room and go do. I
was on the board
some reporting
to do it, but I haven't pulled the trigger.
Sometimes you just gotta pull it, see what happens. No, it'd be a cool deal. It's in Fort Worth. I have never been to Fort Worth for the contest.
I haven't been for the contest. I mean, I've been there, but yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been to the contest deal in Fort Worth. And so WCB is one of those things where like you kind of like that's
the crazy thing
like,
is
oh, do you remember Sheridan? Do you remember this? It's like, so I want to be able to go and say I've been to Fort Worth.
So I guess every time they've gone to Fort Worth, some major catastrophe weather deal has happened. So it makes me wonder like what's going to happen this year.
Probably something cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, think about that. How many people always talk about the ice storm?
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, everybody talks about the ice storm before. Like
it makes me wonder what's going to happen.
Cool. Let's go see what happens.
Well, the question I was kind of thinking about asking you is, so I remember the day I was over at your place last year and we were making hammers and you came up to me and you're like, dude, I got this idea of something we should do. And you're like, we should start a podcast. And I was like, dude, I was thinking the same thing. And so the thing that I was kind of wondering is like, in your mind, what were your expectations and what has reality been? You know, what expectations did you have, and then what has reality done to make you think about that as well?
So I'm probably one of the worst businessmen in the world. I don't know.
I'm not the greatest either.
Like, and it's funny to think. It's like I own a business. This is pretty good. It's like I have and in my mind, I'm horrible at social media. And I have a decent social media following where it's like it's kind of a funny deal. So like I am so like it's my ADHD deal, type deal of like I'm just like this is a good idea. I've had this idea for a little bit. Let's just try it out. Fuck it. Let's just do it. I mean, I jump into things, and so it's I had already been thinking like there's a farrier podcast out there, right? And they're cool. They're just a different deal of what my experiences had been of talking to guys.
Yeah,
and so it's vibe. Yeah, and a little bit different vibes. I mean, it's like you go to these contests all these times, or you like that weekend you had friends over and we're talking about everything. We're talking about shoeing. We're talking about this and that, and it's like, man, people would probably like to listen to this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and that's our whole, like when we're at contests, you're hearing stories about old contests and everything. It's like, or how like things that happen in their shoeing business or their life. And it's like, so that was really like my first thought was like, that would be great to do. And I already had the thought of doing it, but it was just like, I just didn't think I could do it by myself. I was like, I can't do this alone. Yeah. I know nothing about computers. I know nothing about editing, and I know nothing about like keeping conversations going all the time, and like of having like I need somebody else to be in the conversation as well.
The exact same thoughts going through my head before as well.
Yeah, and so you're like, well, let's just start this thing. I'm like we're hanging out with this like Gavin. Why didn't I think of Gavin? Like we're close. We've been buddies since the beginning of our shoeing, and we're in the same crowds all the time and everything. It's like we're the same age pretty much. A lot of things happening, and like, but at the same time different. Yeah. Like we're still different people, have different views on things.
Same but different.
Yeah, same but different. But it's like, so I was like, man, this would be a good person to do it with, and I knew that you weren't just gonna like. Random, like it's also hard is you team up with somebody of the fact of like you don't want them to randomly just disappear of like, well, can't do it anymore, fucking flake, just a straight flake where I'm like, well, I don't think Gavin's gonna flake on me, so that's like another pro. It's like
I'm a dedicated kind of person,
and like this sounds like I like was a formulated plan in my head, but it's like this happened in 10 minutes of me taking a piss inside. Where I like came back out and I was like, let's do this. We should do a podcast, man. It's like, yeah. And it's so, I don't like my expectations of starting it. I thought we were going to suck way longer. I really did. I was like, it's going to be a year of shitty sound.
And here we are a year later.
And our sound still isn't great. But it's like no, I think our sound's pretty good. But it's like, I thought it was going to be, the first year is going to be such a freaking grind, and barely anybody was going to listen to it. And I was just aware of that. I don't know, starting, I was just like, yeah, we'll probably have like 10 listeners.
Yep.
Just our buddies, and that'll be kind of cool. And like, think of like how cool it would be if we could get some people involved with it a little bit. That's like, it's hard to say. It's just like, me going back to saying that I'm a bad businessman. I never think of money. Like, it drives Chelsea fucking nuts. Because I'm just like, it'll just work out. Things have a weird... Like, you probably are sick of me saying it sometimes. Like, man, it's just... We just do it, and, like, somehow someone shows up and is like, hey, let me help you guys. Because it is, like... we're going back to, like, this isn't that easy. Like, this is hard. It is a chunk of our time. Mm-hmm. We have invested a good chunk of money in equipment. To just get that good sound. I have to literally drive 15 minutes one way each time we do this, and I park on the side of the road. Like, I had to put a whole inverter system in my trailer so I have power here, so we can like do this in the shoeing rig. It's like none of this is cheap and easy, so it is like but I'm pretty okay with dumping money at things that I think that'll somehow work out some way. And also, I was just thinking like, I already was donating so many hammers and stuff to the farrier world. I was like, this is my way of donating to the farrier world to get people to hear these people's story, because if not, they just might not ever be like, I think how cool that is of like, man, John McNerney's kids one day can, if dad dies and they want to hear a story about him, they could go back and listen to our podcast, and that's down in time.
The memory.
That's a memory, man. That's huge. Like, I think that's so cool that we have that down in history for farriers, you know, and like that they can go. So I did think it was like, oh, it doesn't really matter about the money. I just want to make this contribution to the farrier world, and I think it's good, and it gets our trade out in front of people and everything. Like, anybody can listen to it, and they get a little bit of insight of what's out there and what's happening, how these guys live their freaking life, man.
And that's something people have told us. Like, I had no idea. Thanks for sharing that, or, you know, putting that out there for us, you know. And
so I think that was my first, when we were starting it, that was kind of where I was at. And now it's like, we are making money at this deal. Like, that's for sure. But we have people behind us a little bit and helping us out. So we have awesome sponsors right now. Farrier Box, we have the World Championships of Blacksmith, and we have Well Shot of, like, that is, I could almost care less how if they give us any money. Just them saying that they want to help us out and ask to help us is like huge.
Be a part of it.
Huge. And that people listen to this.
Yeah. We got to thank you guys for listening.
It's huge. Thank you, listen. But it's like, that is like the reality of what it turned into. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. Like, I know we aren't no Joe Rogan or anything, but
not yet.
But it's like how freaking cool it was. Like, I think the Winter Clinic was one of the first things that we went to that was like a bigger deal. And it was like everywhere we went, people were saying thank you for the podcast. And that they love listening to it. And they'd tell us, like, oh, I really liked this one. I really loved it when you guys do this. That was so freaking cool. But it was also a reminder that you're like, people are depending on us.
Yeah. Yeah, some people would be like, you're not putting out an episode this week? And it's like, oh, shit, well, something's messed up with the computer, you know?
Yeah, it's like... Dude, it's hard because you're like, now, because in reality, we're a lonely bunch.
Oh, yeah.
We're driving around in our rigs by ourselves all the time. So it's like, we are now a friend in the truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, in a little boost, I listen back to these episodes and I get a boost of enthusiasm, you know?
I remember, actually, we were at the Winter Clinic, and Stan had come up to us, and he said they were driving down the road. He had his wife with him. And I think he said they were listening to Daniel Jones, and I don't think she had met Daniel yet, and they were like listening, and she's like, is this Daniel Jones? Like, this is Daniel Jones? And then they met him, and they're like, oh, we were just listening to you, and I felt like I was just in the room with you. And so that was kind of cool. You know?
No, I and I hope that, like, people that haven't met these guys yet, because it's easy to see him on the pedestal where you're like, man, Bodie is so freaking good, and he's just like, I don't like, and he's got a guy that's not sharing a lot on Instagram, so it's like, or anything, so it's like, I don't even know how he makes this work, you know, or how, like, they just seem like untouchables, you know, like movie stars. But then you listen to him, and you're like, he's just working.
Yeah.
He's just shoeing horses and practicing.
Doing
it, like, he's just another dude, so now you're like, you feel like you can approach him when you meet him, and you feel like you could possibly do that as well. It's not unheard. Like, dude, I think it is, like, but it is a little bit of I don't say a weight, but I take it more of as a responsibility now for us to do this.
Yeah.
We're like,
I agree.
We started it. Now we have to keep the ball rolling, and keep giving this to our trade. That keep getting these stories down and keep getting people to meet each other and growing our community around it. Like, it is a responsibility, and just be that, like, be a friend to our listeners. Yeah. Like, that if you're dedicated to listen, I feel like we should be dedicated to getting that, like, stories out to you, and 100%. keep that relationship going. You know, so, like, I do think it's a mental health deal. Like, I don't know. I hate saying that of like, the depression card has been pulled pretty heavy. All that, like, people have sad days, right? But if you're having a sad, bad day in the truck, man, this thing might pick you up.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of like, it's a little mental health deal. I think it's good for us.
Yeah. Make you realize it's not really all so bad. Like, you know, everybody has a tough day.
Yep. No, I think of, like, come back to your question of, like, man, of what it turned into. turned into something bigger than I thought it was going to be. So faster. I knew it could be this, but it's like I didn't think it was going to happen right away.
Right.
And it did. It felt like 3-4 months in that we were like, wow, this is a lot, and we got to keep
off
rolling.
to the races.
And a lot of it too is that these people that we've interviewed are just all our friends.
Yeah.
And so it's been easy to connect with them, but also every once in a while I take a step back and like our friends are the top competitors and top people in the horseshoeing industry, and we're just very, very lucky. They have also agreed to help us out. And it's like, I think that we owe it to a lot of our listeners, or not our listeners, of our guests, of why this has grown so big so quick.
That was kind of like one worry that I had before we started this was like, hopefully we can get guests to do it with us. And I was worried like, because those things kind of go hand in hand. It's like you have to have good guests in order to get listeners, and you have to have listeners to get good guests, so that was kind of like the thing. I was like, man, I hope people like want to do it, especially when it's first starting out and you have nothing, you have like 2 episodes out and nobody knows whatever. So gotta say big like Robert Jukes was our first one on, right?
Yeah.
And he stepped up and he killed it. And so
or how hard it would be. Like the reality is some of our guys that we're going to have on are older guys that are not computer guys.
Yeah.
So having dudes like freaking Tom Willoughby be willing to figure out how to get on a computer and make time to talk to us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's huge.
So cool.
Yeah. That
what
was
about
my
you?
biggest worry. Well, that was just kind of like my biggest worry was like, hopefully we can get guests. And then I was really impressed with everybody that was willing to jump on there with us. And I remember the conversation, like when I first texted Robert, and he's like, sure, mate, I'd love to get on board and support what you guys got going on. And I was like, hell yeah, that's cool. And, from there, a lot of the guests that we have had on were like, man, I love listening to this show. And they're willing to do it with us. And I think that's like something that's super cool. And I didn't necessarily expect that right away. Like I thought it was going to be quite a bit of a struggle to try and get people on, and everybody's just like stoked to be on and do it with us. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I hope it keeps growing. That's something that I like, and keep seeing things get better and better, and like, so that's kind of where I stand with it.
It's hard too, right? Because it's like, as far as growth, this trade's only so big.
Yeah. So
it is a very niche podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're a farrier podcast. I mean, like, that's just like, we've always talked about, like, oh, we could get this guy on. So it kind of, like, the one thing about our world in the niche market is like, it feels like we could hit this little false summit. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, like, we have, and it's not as far as growth, really. Like, because it's like, okay, I feel like we have most of the farriers that are into competition in the world and everything like that listening, and I imagine there's even some guys that aren't into the competition world that listen. Just like a good chunk of the farriers are listening. There's only so many farrier podcasts, and it's like when we first started, I was like, man, how cool would it be if we could have these top companies be with us one day? And to me, that's like WCB, Well Shop, and like Farrier Box is like our friends that have these things going, and it's like, well, bam, here we are.
Yeah, doing it.
They're with us, and it's like, okay, we got a bunch of listeners. It's like, the cool thing is, like, we have a lot more people to talk to.
Yeah, it's open doors.
So many people to talk to, and like, there's so many good horseshoers out there that we still can talk to. So like at that, but it's like we have a lot of time left of filming things, but it's like, to me, like, I don't think we're gonna like. It's hard to say we could get to this where it's like a huge thing. I don't know how I'd put it. Like
being a full-time job.
Yeah. For that, I don't know if I want that. Right?
No.
Like, I hit that with my Instagram where I'm like, I don't want to deal with companies.
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes it's not worth. The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
No.
Like you got to almost sell out a little bit, and.
Like,
that's one thing we're not, like, I'm not a sellout. Like, I'm not going to support something I don't believe in or, like, get along with or agree with.
I think we've had certain companies that don't even reach out to us because they already know the answer.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to say it too much of, like, we had one company that sent us a message to ask if they could sponsor our deal, and they like deleted it before we could respond. And they're like, "Never mind, we listened to a couple episodes." And like, glad you did, because it's like we aren't gonna stop being who we are, and we know we're not the PG crowd, and it's like we aren't the company like. Hate to throw it out. It's like if you're trying to sell some like glue-on shoes, it's like I'm sure a lot of our listeners use them, but it's like we are the podcast that we want to push people's skill sets.
Yeah,
we aren't trying to sell you any products.
Trying to strive for greatness in, just the black and white part of the trade, like the original basics. That's what makes everything better.
Yeah, like I think like if someone is like, well, what is your podcast selling? Be like, we're selling skills. We're selling clean lifestyles, like good lifestyles, and being a good person. Yeah, is like I think that's the things that we're trying to hit here. Like that's what all our guests are. If you're not that, probably not gonna have you on as our guest. That's just not what we're after. But if you're somebody with a good skill set that you earned, if you're somebody that lives a cool life, that like it's like, and you're just a good person and a good person to the trade, that's who we want to talk to, because that's what we want our trade to be.
Yeah.
So it's like using products is anything after that. If you have a good skill set, I don't think anybody cares if you're using glue on shoes. It's the people that get a little bitchy. They're like, oh yeah, people get after me about glue on shoes. It's like, yeah, because you don't know the other. Yeah. You can't even nail on a fit shoe.
Yep.
So it's like the guy with a really good skill sets, if he's using something like that, it's because he has to use it. It's not, it's a necessity. It's not because he lacks in a different department. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what it's like. Some podcasts, I think those guys make a lot of like money on them because they're selling products to things, and it's like that's just not what we're here to sell. I don't think like we're here to sell something that can't be bought completely.
And that's it. That's what it comes down to.
So it is a hard thing of like we're in uncharted territory. I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes for like anybody that starts out on a venture like this. Like it's I don't know, you can look at like other sports or whatever. Like there's so many different like platforms, I guess, where the territory is charted, I guess. I don't know how you'd want it. Like there's plans at work, like plans for success that work in those kind of, like you look at ESPN or something, like they have multiple different routes and streams or whatever that could, like this is like the recipe and this is what works. Like for us, in this trade, like there's only a few others, and it's almost like you get directed to like one way, but we're trying to figure it out and open the door for so many more people. And I don't know, just kind of branch out a little bit and hear.
That's where I would think like our hope, my hope a little bit with the podcast is too, with like get people to listen. I think that's probably be a good goal for it. Like that's what I was trying to think. Is like there's not really like I think both of us are goal oriented people with deadlines a little bit of like, this is the goal in the year, and this is how we're gonna get there. This is how it's gonna work. And it's like if we hit road bumps, this is Plan B. This is like we have a map a little bit. Where I think probably a good goal, like in my mind right now, is to get this podcast to people that aren't farriers.
Yeah.
And like and maybe that's on us a little bit too. We need to learn to ask questions in a way that's interesting to people that aren't farriers. That doesn't like that. I know I get caught up in that. Like we use a lot of jargon and stuff like that of like slang terms. If you aren't a competitive farrier, you might not know what the hell we're talking about.
Right.
And so it's like we got to explain it to like somebody that doesn't know. But it'd be pretty cool to get the podcast to more people that aren't farriers, so people can start respecting these farriers more.
And actually, that's kind of why, like, when we're talking with guests or whatever, like, I know the answer, but I'll like ask, like, where it almost sounds like a stupid question. Yeah. It's like sometimes I ask it. One, maybe I don't know, and it is probably a stupid question, but it also kind of simplifies it in a way as well. So maybe that somebody doesn't understand, but so.
No, I think that's a smart thing to do. Like you have to.
Yeah, I don't mind coming across looking like a dummy.
Well, see, and it's like, it's not anything of like, oh, I don't do it because I think I'm going to look like a dummy. I just don't even think about it. I'm just like, oh, yeah, that's what they said. It's just like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where it is like there's also those people that are farriers that are in their first year or two that are like, I don't know what that is yet.
Yeah.
I have no idea. You know,
Well, there's even times where we've talked to people and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about, but you know what he's talking about, you know, type thing.
it's hard, but it's like that. I think that could be the cool thing for our farrier podcast to go from here. So I think we've done a good job of gaining our listening base right now, and I definitely don't want to lose them. But I also would like to gain more from people that aren't farriers, and not necessarily for the fact of like, oh, but it's like just to get the word out there more of like, I do think that like WCB could be a freaking ESPN sport that people would watch. You know, like it's like, man, I love timber sports. I'm not a logger. I listen to timber sport guys and stuff all the time. Like they really aren't different than what horseshoers are.
Same thing.
And it's like, so it would be cool to get there one day. I think a lot of it too is people will need to understand of like timber sports isn't real logging.
It is or is not?
Is not.
No.
It's not how guys go and log cuts.
Not every day, no.
No, that's not how they do it, man. It's a way different skill set.
Taking it back to like originality, like the early
A little
days
bit,
almost.
A little bit. Some of it is. Some of it's not. Some of it's a show. Hot saw.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
It's badass. That's fucking
It's fucking
horsepower.
cool. That's all it is.
Loud.
It's like,
oh, I love it.
yeah, hot saw's cool as shit. You're never going to see some cutter packing a fucking hot saw in to go buck up a tree.
There's not guys packing around a V8 to cut through them things. Like,
no.
God damn. But it's just cool.
It is super cool. But it's like, and I don't ever want us to lose our background, but it's like, you know, people get to like get on their soapbox of like, well, match play is not real. It's like, hey, match play is real. And it's still fitting a foot and everything like that, and it's making us speed up. You know what match play way is? Cool to watch.
Yeah, towards
It
the
happens
end.
so quickly. You get to see the winner. You get to watch these two guys, and you don't even have to know their background. You don't have to know anything that's going on.
The test of the mind.
It's just fast and furious, and goes to this, and like, it's also like you know, there's like Forge and Fire. Forge and Fire would not have done as good as if they just made everybody to make nice from plain steel that you bought off the rack and stuff like that. It's cool because they're like, here's a car engine.
Yeah.
Make us a knife. Like,
creativity.
Yeah, it's just like it creates a little bit of things. Like our horseshoeing, we don't ever want to lose our basics, but we might want to cater to the people that are watching on the outside a little bit more if we want to get it to a TV level, I guess, you know.
Maybe it starts with a fantasy league.
Maybe it starts with the fantasy. Get people involved, man.
Yeah.
No, it's I think Craig and them are doing such a good job to like, that's like, man, just at Spruce Meadows, all these people had no idea what's going on with horseshoeing are all of a sudden watching. That was always the cool thing about going to Wisconsin to Madison. It was during that horse expo that was so big, and they're like, all these people are horse people.
Yeah.
And they've never seen something like this.
Yeah.
Like they're standing around that tent so amazed of what's going on.
I won't forget the story. I can't remember who was telling. It might have been Craig or somebody was telling me or telling us, like, oh, these are all like top horseshoers. Like, why isn't my horseshoer here? And he lives there, you know, that kind of thing.
It is one of my favorite things to do, and this might be fucked up, but it's like, if I go to like a barn that has multiple people in it or something, they'll be like, oh yeah, is your horseshoer going to this competition that's coming up?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, oh, is competition not involved? Like, you like competition, don't you? They're like, well, yeah, I compete. And like, oh, so your horseshoer you probably want him to compete too, right? And they're like,
yeah.
Well, yeah. like, you know,
like
that guy,
that
like,
from time to time.
Dude, I always wonder about that. It's like, hey, I'm not a very nice guy to some of my clients either. I'll fire people that drop a hat. I don't get that when horseshoers like, how do you fire a client? It's like, you say goodbye. You just tell them you're not going to be working for them anymore. They need to find a new horseshoer.
Yeah.
But I always wonder if like, I shoe my horses very traditionally. Like, you know, if like, they're in toe clips up front, they're in quarter clips behind, they're in handmaids, and sometimes they're in weird things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they're in like they're in a spiral bar shoe. You know what I mean? Of like,
I think I even remember like you put on like on those Morgans in the hind where it had like the fucking trailer
Yeah,
caulk
caulking.
on there and shit too, right?
Yeah, no, I do weird things on Morgans because it's like Morgan, the association's a little more open, so you can do some more things compared to like Arabs and stuff like that. They're pretty basic of what you can do, but it's like, dude, that client thinks it's hilarious that she'll go to a show
And people
and
are like, "What?"
people are asking what's up with her horse's feet and like what's on there, and it's really funny. Of like, there's a dude that I know works some of the Morgan shows, and he posted on Facebook not that long ago of a shoe just like that on a Morgan horse.
Wondering like what the hell is up with this, or like
No, he posted he made one and put it on the horse.
Oh, I
And
see.
so it was like a little bit of like, I don't want to say that's the reason he did it, but I guarantee he saw that horse that I had him on, and
Yeah.
that horse does pretty damn well at shows.
Yeah.
So he's like, I might want to try that out.
He added a tool for his arsenal.
Yep, but I always
by
think
seeing
it's,
it.
I always wonder of how many times a client goes from me to another horseshoer, and that horseshoer has to tell him like, well, I'm not going to reset these because they're shit.
Such and
You know, it's like, because
Yeah.
they're all fucked up, where the guy's like, I can't remake this. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to do this, so I better
Especially-
ex-nay this idea now.
Especially if you know who they're switching to, and you're like, "Oof, good luck."
Well, that's kind of our area.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't live in Texas, where it's
And you-
like, I'm not trying to bag my area, but it's like, there's not a lot of foraging going on.
The options are limited.
Yeah, and it's like, especially like, that's what I like about contests. And I like going to the contest and telling people, it's like, yeah, this is where your horseshoer was, and this is the division he was in,
Uh-huh.
and this is where I was. This is the division I was in. It's like,
And you just know.
where dude, that's one of my, I pay attention to all local contests because I think they tell a lot about people. Where
Yeah.
it's like, you'll have this guy that he's always running his mouth on Facebook and talking about how good he is, but for some reason he's entering the novice.
Yeah.
Or for
Old
some
big
reason
dog on
he's
campus.
yeah, some reason he's entering the intermediate and he got fucking fourth. And it's like, you ain't fooling nobody, bro. You might be fooling these clients. You might have
put it
been a
in the
little
ring.
fooled. But as far as like us, we all know where you're placing it right now.
Yeah.
And
I've
I
never
am-
been a good guy at being like a salesman like that, you know. Just
Dude, I'm the
not
worst.
me. Just not
and,
me.
And I have to watch it really bad in front of clients because I have a lot of self-doubt.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, well, I'm not really that, like, I know I just like went on a rant that maybe sounded like I didn't have self-doubt, but trust me, I got a fuck ton of it. I do not think I'm good. I see the list of competitors and stuff, and I'm like, I still see myself as the little kid, like, where I'm like, I can't compete with these guys.
Yeah.
These guys are the shit. Like, to trick my brain to ever think that I could be as good as money, fuck, my brain don't work that way.
But I think that's also needed, you know, in order to, you know, set your expectations or whatever, and then try to achieve them or like
Yes.
exceed them.
Yes.
You know.
Yes. So that's where I don't do good in front of clients sometimes because I'll be like, well, I missed this quarter a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little under here. Like, I'm talking to them like it's a buddy at a
Yeah,
practice.
you're speaking out loud, essentially.
Yeah, and like, oh, well, you know, this clinch win. And it's like, you start mentioning that shit, and they start cataloging it. And they're like, this dude's fucking up all the time.
Yeah.
And then they get some guy in that, like, man, he's gutting the quarters and fucking laying shoe on the frog, but he's telling you how good it's all going to be and why and how he nailed it and how good they look.
I can't do
buy
that.
it. They don't know what they're looking
Yeah, I
at.
can't do that.
I'm the worst at it. You know, and it's like, I don't know. That's why, like, the clients that I end up keeping are ones that are very cognitive, where they can, like, they know I'm never going to do a perfect job. They know I'm always trying to,
Yep.
but they also understand how hard horseshoeing just is.
Yeah.
That no one's doing perfect jobs.
No.
Like,
I mean,
they
what is
totally,
the perfect job?
Yeah, dude,
You
I
know?
don't know, but there's some guys out there, they're pretty sure they're doing it.
Yeah, there always is.
They're
you know?
pretty positive they're laying it down every day.
Like you can
Like, the
look at
dudes
it.
that pull dudes that say like now open for consultations,
Oh Jesus.
I will fight you. like if you ever like, man, and like, I guess I can't fight you, but it's like I need to watch that. But it's like, come to the
It's amazing
competition.
that-
Come to the competition and show me that you're fucking better than me.
It's amazing somebody's that confident, thinking like,
Jesus.
"I will do a consultation for you."
It's never I'm speaking for him. You're never gonna see Money saying that I'm open for consultations.
Fuck no.
Like here, and
Fuck no.
that's like, dude, it's like a dude like Austin should be the guy doing consultations.
But he's not gonna be.
He would never. He would never do that. We're like, it's always the dudes that are just shitters.
Yeah.
They're like, dude, they're doing a bunch of shit, and they're like, it's a way for them to draw business, but it's also like, to me, it says like, you think you're that good. You think there's no better. Like they're like, man, I can really fix any horse. Or I can figure this out. It's like, hats off to you. I wish I had 10% of your confidence.
Yeah.
But I don't. I got a lot of self-doubt about myself. Like, I don't think I've made a good shoe yet. I'm just
trying.
I'm
Trying.
Yeah, dude, some of them are hard. I made a G-bar the other day, dude. That was the first time I've ever made one. Or a Z-bar.
I've tried one and
Z-bar.
No, a couple, but it's tough. They're hard fucking shoes.
So hard.
It's so like backwards and it's just hard to wrap the brain around, man.
Dude, it is a parts shoe. Like, you have to break it down.
It's like one, you're like, can I just use the MIG welder and just get this over with?
Man, I've made one Z-bar for a horse before, and I just forged a frog plate in the Z and just jumped it onto a shoe and then cut the other branch. I think
that's what I did. Yeah.
I was like, I was at the horse and I was like, I'm not doing this today. I don't even know what am I going to cut? 40 inches and just start bending shit around and trying to
hopefully it works.
Hopefully I have enough. Like, it looks like a lot of steel, but it's like reality. Like, it can get made pretty easy. Like, once you have your head wrapped around where things connect.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Because there's not like a ton of shaping can go on. Like, once it's like there and you got the bar that's going across to the tip of the frog plate, and it's like,
dude, no.
Well, and usually like they're fucked up feet that they're going on, so it's like it's gonna have a fucked up shape. So,
dude, and it's not one you can just like throw up square on the anvil, really.
No. Yeah.
Like, the only thing, like, the one for the Fort Worth's got going for it that makes it easy is, like, it's a easy, good section with just this little extra in there. And not a little extra, like, with this extra stuff in the middle where you're like, oh, okay. Where it's like, it doesn't have a vast difference in section. Where some shoes, like, dude, Roadsters screw with my mind.
Yeah.
Because you can't, everyone's like, well, lines. It's like, well, you can somewhat look at the inside shape and you can somewhat look at the outside shape, but also not really. Because they're just not, you have to look at the foot shape down the middle of it, like where it's going to fit. That's the shape you have to look at, because, like, especially like widest part forward, okay, that's going to be, the outside shape is going to be the shape of the hoof. And the inside shape is going to be just a little bit different because it's got a little wider toe. You know, it's not as the same thickness or same width all the way around. Right. And so the inside shape's going to be a little bit broader. Well, then you get to the fucking heels.
Good luck.
Yeah, where it's like the inside shape on the inside is going to be different because the section's drawn up and it's a skinnier section. The inside shape on the outside, or the shape on the outside of the inside heel, is going to be different because you fit it tighter.
Yeah.
The lateral side, you're going to fit it fairly full, and you're going to have a wider section, so you're going to have a little bit more on the inside, so it's going to affect your shape there. So it's like when you're making basic shoes, you're like, oh, just make this nice inside shape and this nice outside shape that kind of match each other. But then also you make this Roadster and you're like, whoa, where does this even go? Like, what's good, what's bad?
Our Roadster horse at Classic, where the outside on both of ours was just straight. Like, there was no quarter, essentially, because it was just kind of worn off because he was barefoot. And that's why, fuck, if it would have just made it straight, it would have looked, I mean, it wasn't that great of a job anyways, but it would have just, like, been crazy.
It would have looked like a bad Roadster, but it also would have just been, it's hard to fit.
Yeah.
Super hard to fit. Like, it's just like, and you can't just look at one inside or the outside shape and be like, okay, that's where I'm going to put it. You, like, have to be able to, like, x-ray vision and see where this foot's going to sit on this shoe. It's a super freaking mind screwy deal, where that Z-bar is at least like, okay, I'm just building a normal shoe, and then here this lays inside of it.
Yeah.
And that's how it's going to hopefully freaking work out.
That's it, and that's that.
Man. But what kind of talked about goals we got for this contest or for this podcast and stuff. Do you have any goals as far as your shoeing?
It's kind of something that's been going through my brain quite a bit lately, and especially because I made this move. So it's like a weird transition for me right now where I'm still trying to figure all this out in my brain and what I'm going to do. Because Ashley and I, we've been trying to find a house. You know, so it's like I'm kind of in a mix of I don't necessarily have one dead set right now, but I'm kind of going back and forth, and yeah, it's just like a weird place for me at the moment as far as like, do I want to keep my business all up north, or do I want to try and really push to bring my business down here? You know,
are you going to move north, or are you guys going to live near where you're living now?
It's going to be kind of in this area, yeah.
Okay.
You know, and mostly that's because of her daughter is in high school now, so basically we have to wait for her to graduate before we're able to move kind of out of this region or this area. Yeah. You know, so.
And is it like you not want to pick up as many horses where you are because is like the price just lower?
Price is a little bit lower, and there's not very many. A lot of them are Western horses, and Western horses are kind of like my least favorite to work on. Okay. And so I've kind of just been waiting. I don't really want to like advertise or whatever right now. Like I'm kind of waiting for the right opportunity to meet somebody where I could put myself in that door, and hopefully it opens up more doors. You know what I mean? To
this area.
Yeah, like the term or whatever people use is organic. You know.
Yeah.
Just hoping it like. I'm pushing for it. Like I'm trying to like insert myself in that area. So hopefully like it opens up a door, and that'll open up more versus sometimes when you advertise like I want to be here and this is where I want to be, like you may not necessarily get the right opportunity or right option.
No,
so
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Kind of like what you said earlier, like it'll all work out.
Dude, it weirdly does. Me and Chelsea talk about it all the time. Like, I'm just going to put this out in the universe, and I'm just going to start trying to maybe head that direction, and all of a sudden it just happens.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it's at for the shoeing business wise for me, you know.
Nice.
Like I have a good business up there. It's a lot of driving, which kind of eats out a guy for a little bit, and then
I think a lot of us don't take that for an account when we're thinking business wise of like how much that driving's eating into profit or just into your life, even
especially
if you're not.
When diesel's $5.75 a gallon right now. It is fucked.
What?
Yeah, it's $5.75.
Good shit,
dude.
Maybe I just haven't been looking, but I don't think I'm paying that.
Well, when I came down for the Oregon contest, I think I paid $3 something.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, I think it were like $4 too.
I was like amazed. I was like, how the fuck is it $1 cheaper down here than it is up there?
And especially we're in the same fucked up.
Exactly.
Political wise, we might be worse.
I was blown away. I was like, this is like, I mean, the same area essentially. Yeah, $5.75.
Dude, that's a lot. And I don't know, like, I always try to think of it as like, I saw some guy post a while back. He's like, oh, I had to drive 8 hours and did this about like this many horses, but I made like $6,000 today. And he's like, would you do that? And I'm just like, my head goes back to like, what if if you're on your deathbed and someone's like, what if I can sell you 8 hours of time with your family again? How much would you pay for that? I would pay a lot more than $6,000. Fuck ton more. So that's how I try to look at it. It's like, well, you don't get that option in the end. No one's ever going to fucking come up to you with that sweet ass deal that you get a little more time with your family.
No.
We can do it now. So it's like, and I'll shoot some shittier horses and just stay home. I just want to be around my family. I don't know. Like, I'm sure like he's like right now they probably just want quality time with Ashley and stuff being around it. So it's like you don't want to be sitting in the fucking truck all the damn time.
Yeah.
But at the same hand, it's like so it has to be fully worth it all the way around. I bet it's a hard thing to try to decide.
It's a big juggle. I'm trying to figure that out. It's a work in progress.
No, I think that's a good way of like not putting too much pressure on it though. Of like fully see what happens and don't just jump ship on one side or the other.
Exactly. Especially, I have loyalty now, right?
Yeah.
And that's always the scary thing when you take on something new is like, well, I'm risking what I have for this. And, you know as well as I do with like horse people, like they can be flaky. And it could just be something super simple if they decide to fire you at the drop of a hat.
And they can be vengeful, though, at the same time. You could just literally tell them, like, hey, I'm just wanting to move closer to my family and do a little bit of this. And, like, they'll fucking run your name down because you dropped them. You put them in a bind. Like, and it's like...
Exactly.
You never know when that time's right. So it's like, just don't even fucking worry about it. I don't know. Like, I've had those people getting mad around like, my area I immediately live in, shitty horse people, for the most part. They're all, like... They want you to come on Saturdays and evenings and stuff like that. And it's like, no, sorry, that's my family time. And it's like, they'll, like, literally, I've seen these like, well, he doesn't care about his customers. He doesn't put us first. Like, no, I don't put you first. No. Like, why would I ever? Like, would you do that?
No,
like, it's
of course
like,
not.
Horse people can be freaking wild, man. It is a...
When I first started out, like, in my career, like, yeah, I would try to put them all first, but... You get to a point where you realize, like, just what you just said, where you have to put your life first, because they're not going to put your life before their lives, So
they won't.
It's a weird thing, weird dynamic.
Super hard, but you also, like, don't want to just go ahead and, like, shit in the hand that feeds you.
No.
Like, so you try taking care of them a little bit, man. It's like, it's super hard. That's why my shoeing, I always think, like, especially with doing the podcast, I'll talk to these guys at these, like, big business, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's what I want to do, just shoe a bunch of horses. And then I'm just like, no, maybe it's not what you want to do. Maybe you want to be in the shop, just keep shoeing the small amount of horses that you're shoeing. And be happy with it, because it's man, no one calls me that the pan lost a shoe. Like, or something like, it's not a thing that happens, really. It's just like, and they don't get mad when I don't show up at this time. It's like, or don't answer the phone. Like, it's just a way easier crowd to work for in general. And I gotta be home. So it's like, I think that's a big, and I like, you get people messaging us too, especially after we had that podcast. I forget who it was now. We were talking about, like, sometimes you just have to move out of the area and move into an area that has good shoeing. Like, don't complain that you can't make a living where you are, but also don't bottle yourself up to think that horseshoeing is the only thing you can do. True. Like, even if you want to be in the horseshoeing, it's like, understand, like, different ways how to make money in it and stuff like that. All of the really good horseshoers that are making really good livings, like, are generally doing something else mixed in there. Mm-hmm. Like, dude, like, Chad Chance is probably one of my favorite ones.
That's exactly who I was just thinking of.
He's an auctioneer and a realtor right now. Like, it's just like, dude, and he's always doing things successfully because he's just like, but he's also always chasing things to, like, make his body last as long as he can and keep doing what he wants to do. And keep, like, man, a quick way to not love horseshoeing anymore is just burn yourself out on it and just keep shoeing as many horses as you can and feeling like you're getting used.
It's not sustainable.
No, man, prove to yourself that you are good at other things in life and that you've started one business and you got it going. Keep that one going. Start a different business. Do something else a little bit. Take a little, like, have a backup plan.
Yeah.
Of something. Like,
yeah. And that's kind of part of the reason also, like, starting a podcast and doing YouTube and, it's more irons in the fire, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's hard, too, of, like, the nice thing about the podcast and your YouTube is it's you. You aren't with somebody else. We're like,
we are still our own bosses.
Yes. Yes. I get pretty that yuck feeling when I feel like I'm getting used by somebody, or something. Like, it's quick for me. Like like the troll clothing deal of, like, I quickly just felt like, I don't think this is where, like, this is pretty equal. One-sided. Like a deal. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and show myself the exit. Like, it's and he puts that bad, but it's like when it's something for you and your name and everything like that, it's a little bit easier to keep after it, keep going for it,
building your own brand, essentially.
That's I think it's something we don't work on enough as a horseshoer.
Yeah, as farriers, like, we are our own brand. Whether we're just shoeing horses every day, like, you have to uphold your image, in that community.
You do, and in the horse world, like we were saying, horse people are crazy, man. Watch what you put on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, It can go bad ways. Like things that we think are jokes,
You know what's so crazy?
they don't take it as a joke.
There's a guy that's in our area. He's not here anymore, but for I think like probably 20 years, like he was the guy. He was like the top-notch guy of this area, and it's so mind-boggling to me. Like he got to a point where everybody knew he was drinking whiskey, popping pills, doing drugs, and going to prison, multiple DUI, like not prison, but yeah, he would get
Jail.
multiple DUIs, and he would go away. But in his, like, to the client's eyes, like, he was still the guy, and they were willing to put up with all that bullshit, and like he still got away with it. And that's just like mind-boggling to me. Is like, how did this guy get away with all this shit, and he was still the king tut of this area?
That's wild.
It's so weird. And the other thing, so now his apprentice, he's still shoeing around here, and it would get to a point where, like, they would see the apprentice pulling up driving the rig, and they would know, like, oh, he's back on the sauce again, and you know, he's not able to drive. And
Dude,
like,
it's crazy though how they'll keep him around.
I know, dude. And it's so people that I work for now, like that's how I basically have learned all these stories. Is like, oh, so and so, like this. That's how I've gotten all this information is through them being like, and they were willing to put up with him being drunk, or you know, and
dude,
it's crazy.
It is wild. Like, and it's like, what was he do? Like, was he just so, you know, like, why? Why were they willing to deal with it?
And it might have been a thing also where there might not have been very many other options in this area.
Yeah.
And so that's probably who they had to go by or use, you know. And it's also kind of crazy. Like, he had this little brand, like an iron.
Yeah.
And he would go around at barns and, like, on a wood, there's usually like wood posts right there.
Yep.
He would heat it up, brand the wood post, almost like, this is my barn. And like, there's a lot of barns I go to, and I'll see that brand by the shoeing bay. Like, that's crazy. And like, how did people, like, he would go around branding all these barns. Like, there's tons of barns I go to, and I'll pull up to the shoeing area, and there's the brand right there.
And some people are just very pushy salesmen. We're like, well, he never gave us the option to fire him. Like, he would just show back up.
Yeah.
They can just do it, where it's like, dude, there's like, I've dealt with salesmen in different worlds where they're like, do they call every day? It's like, I haven't answered your last 15 fucking calls. Why are you still calling me? Dude, but they like, hey, I would love to have your business. And it's like, at this point, how is this not awkward?
Yeah, why do you want my business? Like,
dude, it is so weird. It's like, I don't get it. I can't be that guy. It's like, I have clients that I've had for like probably 8 years. I'm like, so do you want to go ahead and reschedule, or are we going to just keep doing this? It's like, I'm sure it's like, they're like, well, that's kind of weird. I think Riley was trying to get rid of me today. But it's like, I just have that much doubt. It's like, yeah, I know. It wasn't that great of a finished job today. Like, it's like, might want to fire me now. Use somebody else.
Just a little bit different.
Oh man, yeah. Some dudes have just all the confidence in the world, and but it doesn't look that great on us sometimes when that's the norm. Yeah. Of like, that's where, like, that's one thing I like about this podcast is people get to hear that, like, horseshoers aren't a bunch of drunks that are just like sloshing around.
No.
Like no, it's like these guys are like busting their ass, working out, practicing really hard, watching what they eat. You know, it's like, these are athletes of this industry. This is what it can be. I think it's freaking awesome. I think it's
something to strive
for people to listen to. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, if you guys are listening to this, hit the subscribe button, the like button, share it, and give us a rating.
5 stars only, or you get sand in the eyes. You give us less than that, and I see a contest. I'm gonna put water on your forge.
Drop a penny in there.
Go and throw some slag right on top of the fire. Yeah. Just the whole thing. That's what I won't even have to do that. Karma will get you. Your shoe will burn up during a class if you don't give a 5-star. I don't make the rules. It's just how it happens.
It's the way she goes, boys. It's the way she goes. But
awesome.
We appreciate you guys all listening, and we look forward to another year. Let's do it.
If you guys got any ideas, thanks. Like everybody talking about shoe trades, stuff like that. We'll keep going on those types of things. Now that summer's getting over, we're getting into that. Everybody will be in the shops a little bit more. So. Shoot us your ideas.
comment.
You guys got problems, dilemmas, send them on over. Let us know your bitches and your gripes.
Yeah.
Or even things that you're excited about. Thanks,
Hell yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.